All right, let's go live. This is actually remove. Okay. All right, we are live, and I think everybody should be able to hear us. We are rocking and rolling. My name is Brett Sklar. I am the guy you hear from every once in a while. I am the person that runs a company called Grow Powerful. I'm the one lucky enough to have amazing people such as the folks you've got on here with us today to join in. And this is a special edition of our program, our show, our channel called The Grow Method. Again, my name is Brett Sklar. I'm the founder and one of the chief marketing officers, one of about 30 that we've got in the crew. But two very special people we've got here today is both Christina Motz as well as Jim Berkman. And I'll let them share their awesomeness and their expertise. But I thought we would talk today about the idea around outflanking your competitors. And I want to throw up a slide for you here. It was a Gartner, I was a part of a Gartner CMO budget study. And when I was looking at this, and by the way, this is not my first time doing marketing. I've been doing it for about 240 years. I've seen lots of ups and downs in the B2B tech sector. We are definitely in a down part of the B2B tech sector right now. But one of the things I was looking at when we looked at this slide, and there's a bunch of slides, and go talk to Gartner. They've got some really cool stuff to share. But one of the things that I wanted to dive into, and the reason why I thought the idea of outflanking your competitors is a good one, is because, as you can see, and this incorporates large enterprise companies, mid-sized companies, small businesses. It's a big mix of, I think, like 400 chief marketing officers, and it's gone up and gone down over time. But the percentage of marketing budget as a percentage of the total revenue has been in decline for many years. And then in COVID, right after COVID, there was a massive decline, and then it sort of went back to the, if you take out that COVID blip, it's sort of a normal curve that's going down. And we can talk about efficiency of marketing. We could talk about being better at targeted marketing. We could talk about, the fact that we're getting to know our ideal client profiles better and spending less time doing random acts of marketing. But one of the things I think about when I see this is, what if you were the company that decided to really outmarket anybody else within your market? And what would that look like? And would that be successful? So I brought with me a couple of amazing chief marketing officers who happen to prefer gigs over jobs and work as fractional or interim chief marketing officers. And they bring their expertise to companies who either wouldn't normally have a chief marketing officer, but they can have it now, or they want to bring their expertise to solve specific problems. So now I get to pick on my colleagues here, my guests, and I want to ask a question, which is, introduce yourself, and we'll start with you, Christina, because you showed up on time. Jim, you're a marketer, so you get to show up whenever you want to, and just talk to us and tell us. And I'll hide this Gartner slide. Thank you, Christina. Introduce yourself, and then tell us a story that you've either been a part of or you've seen that's really impressed you when it comes to outflanking your competitors.
Sure. So first, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. And hello, Christina Motz. I'm a multiple time CMO, VP marketing. I've worked in marketing for a very long time, and now am very happy as a fractional CMO. It allows me to take all of those years of functional experience and executive experience driving, different size companies and leverage it for many companies. And I think that's the most fun. You get to a certain point in your career where you're like, okay, been there, done that. And then you say, well, wait a minute, if I can take all of what I learned and help more companies grow by serving more companies, and in the process, you learn more yourself because you get exposed to more people over a shorter period of time. So yes, really enjoying the work, working fractional. So a story. I was thinking about this before we joined, since Brett threw this out at us, I think yesterday. Hey, how about, story? And there's a lot of Goliath stories, right? There's a lot of these really big companies are like, oh yeah, they're crushing it because they were already in a marketing leadership or market leadership position. There's this one little company that I'm so proud of, and full disclosure, I am an advisor for them. The name of the company is Cloud Campaign, and they're a social media platform for agencies, social media management. Over the course of this time where CMOs have been under incredible pressure from boards to decrease spending and lay people off just to do it, just to decrease spending, this small startup got really, really smart at doing what they were already doing well, which is pay attention to the data and go deeper. They analyzed their funnel, they optimized their paid, and they did a post probably about 2 months ago, I want to say 2 to 3 months ago, where they showed the impact of optimizing their paid spend. So they didn't decrease their paid spend, they optimized it. And they optimized it and worked on it more and more and more, honed in on the right metrics to be watching. And that chart was a hockey stick, exactly what boards like to see, right? So they could have just cut the spend. Instead, they said, let's keep spending, but get more out of every dollar. And that's just one example of how they've used data, but a good one.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's something to be said there. One of the subtitles of this conversation is not just outflanking your competitors, but outflanking your competitors by doubling down on marketing. And that doesn't always have to mean doubling your spend. Maybe it just means doubling your ROI and being smarter, or bringing in, people like yourself who know how to identify the target market and to really focus in there. So I love that example. I appreciate that. Let's take a minute and let's get introduced to and hear stories from the great Mr. Jim Berkman. Welcome.
Thank you. It's funny, you just said doubling marketing budget, and I had never even considered that, because I've never seen that in my 30 plus years of marketing. I guess you could do that, but yeah, I've never seen that. Talking about and I've been in marketing for a long time, my whole career, and primarily B2B enterprise, startup. That's the space that I've been in. Let's see. One of the things I was thinking about for this morning was, we think of outflanking your competition. You think of, or what came to mind was like Game of Thrones, where you have these battles on the screen, and the thing is that they never just, hey, let's rush out. And, they always plan. There's strategy involved, and when what we've seen in the last couple of years in the market has definitely not been strategic. It has been knee jerk. It has been fear based. And of course, I get it. I've lived through a bunch of these roller coaster cycles, but at the end of the day, if you aren't being strategic at what you're doing, it's probably not going to work out real well. At least you're certainly not going to grow, and you're not going to get a leg up on your competition. The thing that I saw, what came to mind thinking through this was, I was with a company called Gigamon, and they launched back in, I think, 2008. end of 2008, which, if you remember, was not a great time to launch a company. Amazing story. The founders, 6 founders, put in 10K each. Best 10K ever spent by anyone ever, because they're still cashing their $1 million checks. But they had the mentality for growth, and they had some luck in terms of marketing, but or market conditions. But they went out and found a growth partner in Highland Capital, and they brought in the funds, took the risks, and they were able to. I joined as the head of marketing in 2010, and we were able to grow in a difficult market. If you remember, 2010 still wasn't great. We were able to grow within a couple years to an IPO and 220-ish million in revenue. So, but 10x, which is that's the number you always want your marketing to grow. But the way they did it was kind of the traditional. It was partnerships. It was the channel, and it was doubling down on the workforce. Not just relying on internal sellers, but bringing in that asymmetric workforce advantage of more sellers doing work for you. And so but it was all done strategically. It wasn't happenstance, and it wasn't knee jerk.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, I think that's you both brought some great examples there, and I think we got a question that came in, and this came in through looks like it came in through LinkedIn. Somebody DM'd me. How do I measure the effectiveness of my marketing spend so I can baseline where I'm at compared to competitors? It's funny. We always, a lot of startups, especially startups who are finding their PLG, strategy and approach, their product-led growth strategy and approach, they love to talk about how there's no real competition. But when we're talking about outflanking competition, we have to understand and respect where we are in the competitive world. So, whoever wants to take this one first, how do you measure the effectiveness of your marketing spend so you can set that baseline and then, make it better, faster, stronger?
I'll go ahead and respond, but I'll keep it brief, Jim, so you can add some color as well. I think, marketing spend is very general, right? So I'm going to answer with making assumptions about what this question is. It also depends a lot on what your business model is, or in what your go-to-market motion is. Is it product-led growth? Is it enterprise sales? So in general, it's really important to hone in on what your key performance indicators are. So your leading indicators and your results, and identify the metrics you're going to measure and be consistent. Like, one of the biggest mistakes that I see are people who will teams that look at metrics for maybe a month or two, and then they're like, oh, well, this isn't telling us anything. And then they switch up the metrics. And the problem is then you're not actually evaluating yourself versus yourself. And that's, I think, a real key to think about, is not, yes, it's important to pay attention where you're at versus your competitors, but it's almost more important to just keep beating yourself. So you want to, for marketing spend, you should be looking at things like cost per lead. If you are in the enterprise space or any sort of direct sales channel, you want to look at if you're doing channel marketing with partners, you want to look at the efficiency and the effectiveness of the leads that are coming in from the partners. Your cost per lead, it's funny that when people get leads from partners, they don't always measure them in the same way that they do their own marketing efforts. So be looking at your partner leads in the same way. If you're doing anything like product-led growth, this is one of the biggest things I've seen with product-led growth companies. They look at the initial KPI of top of funnel where, oh, everybody's using our free version of the product. Look at us. We've driven, 1,000 more free downloads, blah, blah, blah. But you have to look at the entire product-led growth funnel. And are those free users converting? And what are the triggers? What do you see that makes them convert? And then you look at, when you're talking about effectiveness of your spend, how can you increase their velocity through the product-led growth funnel? And then obviously, if you're just doing straight up, online conversion, you want to look at your cost per acquisition. So each acquired customer, and those are, the big metrics. But instead of worrying about your competitors, and you can get competitor data from a lot of like the SEO tools, the different platforms offer some really good competitive benchmark data now. But first, just trend your own data. Look at what you've done over the past, I used to say, 12 to 24 months. COVID kind of screwed all of our metrics up. Yeah. So you almost have to look at pre-COVID and post-COVID and look at those data sets separately and then together and work on beating your own benchmarks. That is so much more important.
Compete against yourself versus competing with others, and you have a good chance. It's like my relationship with Strava, right? So bike riding, skiing, I love to use Strava, which is kind of this, it's when you're doing activities, it's the app that tracks everything, but it creates a social media aspect to it as well. And so I'm not like, I bike a lot and I'm not really that fast. So I kind of don't worry about competing against others, but I'm always competing against myself. And that's kind of what I hear you talking about, Christina. So I love that. Love that approach. We have a few more questions that came in, but Jem, wanted to get your thoughts on this question about your marketing spend versus competitors.
Sure, and I'll say, Christina, amazing. You hit most of everything I was going to say. But I will add that one of the big challenges, especially with dealing with startups or early stage startups, is tracking and measuring is actually one of the harder things to do. So in an ideal world, you have brought on a marketing ops person, not just sales ops, but or revenue ops, but marketing ops, and you're starting to quantify that. But really, like you said, the way is to optimize against your own metrics. Look and see what you did last week, last month, last year, and figure out what was working and what wasn't working. That's the biggest thing is always improve. So I'll throw it back.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left here. We've got another question that came in, and I think we might have time for one more as well. But the next question that came in is this one, which is, how do I know what my competitors are doing? What if they're trying to outflank us? And there's, I think we can look at it as both leading indicators as well as lagging indicators. But again, this is a great question. Again, came in through DM. I'd love to hear, your perspectives on that. It's funny. I'm always trying to, for the clients that I work with, I'm, obviously I've got Google alerts set up, for the industry, if it's specific enough, for company names. So looking for what they're doing. The problem is that is a very much lagging indicator. And so by the time they've posted it, it's too late. The other thing that I try to look out for, especially for mid-size and larger companies, is job openings. What are they hiring for? And that can give you an indication of what kind of, is it a SaaS company that's looking for, AI specialists? Well, okay, clearly they're going to put some AI in their tech. Are they a SaaS company that's looking for, billing specialists? Well, that means they might do something different. So there's some indicators you can get from the job openings they've got. I'm curious, Jim and Christina, and Jim, maybe I'll start with you this time. how do you track what competitors are doing before it reaches mass market?
Sure. To some degree, I think it's the wrong question because yes, you need to be aware. Both across the full spectrum. Pricing, what the product features are, all of those kind of things. Really important to keep track of that. But if you're worried about what your competitor is doing, you're not focusing on what you're doing. And so, it goes back to what I said earlier. You really need to put a solid strategy in place. You need to you need to have buy-in on that strategy. Not just within the marketing team, but within the executive leadership team and as well as the board. Because if you don't have the higher level buy-ins, then it's not really going to work. But yes, you track what your competitor is doing, but it's also important to not. The rant that I see in one of my CMO groups is the random employee comes up to the head of marketing and says, hey, XYZ company. Oh, the best one I think I just saw was about the CEO came up and said, hey, that Barbie movie is everywhere. They're doing an amazing job. Can we market like that? And it's like, do you have $100 million and are you profit sharing with the movie stars? Probably not. And so don't let yourself get spun around the axle on what the competitors are doing. Get your own house in order.
Yeah.
I actually have a little bit of a different perspective I'd love to share. I agree with everything Jim said, but I also think there are two main areas you should be watching with your competitors. Mm-hmm. And one is, I worked for an SEO company, an amazing one named Moz for years. So I'm going to go back to search engine optimization. The platforms are really strong. Do keyword research and you can see your competitors' keywords and you can see what's driving traffic to their website.
Yeah.
And so by doing that, and there's wonderful tools around clustering and things like this now, you can see what content pillars that they are building. And if anybody out there who's listening is into content marketing, you'll understand that, your pillar pages on your website are really critical to driving the bulk of your qualified traffic. So you want to look at keywords, you want to look at the backlinks that are driving traffic to your site versus competitors. So those are really important things to look at. And then on the enterprise side, if you're more of an enterprise direct sales company, having competitive battle cards is a really important sales tool for your sales team. And if you're not familiar with battle cards, I'm sure you can Google it and get all kinds of information. But in general, it's positioning your company and your company's unique selling proposition versus a specific competitor. And for that, you want to do ongoing competitive intelligence, which is a lot of the stuff that Brett mentioned, and looking at, keeping track of competitors' websites, press releases, product announcements, industry associations, trade press. Those are the things that will feed you. And then most importantly, create a feedback loop with sales and customer success. Because they're talking to customers, you can build it right into the CRM, some fields that you can run reports and get information on when they're winning versus competitors, why? When they're losing versus competitors, why? It's a version of a win-loss analysis.
We've got one more question coming in. Before we get to that question, when you're both talking, I'm thinking about, and I think it's very topical, of Twitter versus Threads. And so I'll give a 20-second, and then we'll go into it. But Twitter, I think everybody here has heard of it. They know that Elon Musk bought it about 9 months ago. It has been a very interesting ride for Twitter, whether, getting rid of a lot of employees, changing the culture overnight, trying to add new features, trying to figure out how to actually make money on the platform, and having the cockiness and the confidence of being the only game in town when it comes to, what they call as the virtual town hall. Then comes, Mark Zuckerberg, who seems to be having his version of a hot girl summer right now. And he's, launches something that is, he cheated, but not in a bad way. He used Instagram's platform to launch a Twitter competitor. And, now we're about 7 or 8 days out from their launch, and they have about 125 million users. Now, if you had an Instagram account, it made it really easy to get, a Threads account. If you had followers on Instagram, it made it really easy for you to have those same followers on Threads. And so, when we talk about outflanking competitors, they almost had an unfair advantage that they were sitting on and waiting for the perfect opportunity. And in fact, I think they launched a couple of days or a couple of weeks early because it was the same time when Twitter was having server issues and they were throttling people and only letting you see a certain amount of tweets before you were told you've reached your limit. So they seized that opportunity. And so as we're talking about outflanking competitors and knowing what's going on with competitors, man, that one probably, came out of nowhere. I'm sure somebody at Twitter knew that this was going to happen, but had no idea it was going to happen so soon. But it really did come out of nowhere. And if you look at the job openings on Facebook's website, somebody probably would have been able to correlate. In fact, let's take artificial intelligence and let's take stuff that's out on the internet. And, one of the big things that we are learning as marketers is AI can do a lot of the grunt work of writing. We still need to crisp it. The next phase is how AI allows us to be better data scientists as marketers. But imagine if you tell AI, search for anybody looking to hire, someone who knows social media, and all of a sudden you'll get to see all these different people. It could really be a game changer as well. So I think AI could be an advantage to understand what's going on with competitors as well. I just don't think we know how that is yet. Okay, one more question, and then I do want to wrap up. We're running close to 30 minutes. I wanted to try to keep these shorter, but gosh, you guys have such great insights. The last question, my investors are highly involved. How can I leverage them in beating out competitors? When somebody says their investors are highly involved, that's a blessing and a curse, and hopefully it's more of a blessing than a curse. One of my favorite VCs is a company called Tech Operators, and they're hands-on, and they actually truly do help their companies because they are people who were CEOs and did run, SaaS companies. There's others that really try to be helpful, but they overreach. So, my question, and either one of you can take this, what would you tell people to tell their investors to help with, beating out the competitors?
I'll jump in, and the biggest thing is, all as you were saying, all help is not created equal, and so you need to look at what is it your board, your investors bring to the table. Is it industry connections? That can be a huge advantage with if a chairman of the board level person reaches out to somebody in your top 20 account list that you need to close for next quarter. What's not helpful is when they are trying to get into the minutia. You want them to have the buy-in, and so in my mind, that's the biggest thing. Is you want your investors and your board to be your champion, and so getting that buy-in at the executive level and the investor board level.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Christine, any final thoughts on that question?
I would just add, I think Jim's 100% on target there. I also, the biggest thing investors bring is experience and contacts. And I've had some wonderful experience with investors where if you just tell them what you're trying to do, they can even leverage their portfolio companies and ask them, hey, any of you know anything about this competitor or that competitor on behalf of each other? And you could get to know your counterparts at their other companies. So you have a bigger network because of them. and just ask them that for the intelligence. Like intelligence is more than, competitive intelligence is what you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this is a good time for us to wrap up, to not go too far over our allotted time. I just want to say thank you, Christina. Thank you, Jim. These are, we've got an amazing group of people that are a part of Grow Powerful, people that, prefer the gig world over the jobs world, that can come in just like the wolf in Pulp Fiction, and can fix problems, and they can stay there and help, or they can come in and fix problems and get out. I put up here, growpowerful.io/about, and you can see more about Christina. You can see more about Jem, and the other folks that are part of Grow are there as well. So hope you take a moment to check it out. Christina, Jem, again, thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you for sharing your ideas. I definitely learned a couple of things, and I hope everyone else did as well. And on behalf of the team at Grow, thank you for joining this session of the Grow Method, and we hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye.